in Washington with the breaking news special report. Donald Trump on trial, just one step away from the jury getting the case, just as soon as they hammer out jury instructions, with a long, super technical but super important stretch to close out the day. Just 1 week now from closing arguments. Mr. Trump reversing himself and deciding not to testify. You see him here. He is speaking live in the hallway in court. He hasn't said so far why he didn't testify, but his son, Don Jr., made the case for him.
You're going to get a kangaroo court. There's nothing more, nothing less. There'd be absolutely no reason, no justification to do that whatsoever.
We'll gut check that in a second, but this decision means we finish this stage of the trial with 16 days of testimony. 22 total witnesses, 2 from Mr. Trump's defense team, the rest for the prosecution. And the last one for the defense, Robert Costello, the former legal advisor to Michael Cohen, staying sassy in the courtroom again, rolling his eyes at one point as prosecutors tried to attack his credibility, accusing him of trying to intimidate Cohen. Costello calling that claim ridiculous. Still, most of the day, most of the afternoon, boy, we spent it deep in the weeds. The judge was working with both sides to try to hash out jury instructions. And let's be real, not spicy, not dramatic, but so important because it lays out exactly how the jury should approach these historic 34 felony charges that Mr. Trump pleaded not guilty to. Big question now. The timeline. Closing arguments up next Tuesday. That is the expectation here. And the jury may get this case either late that day or more likely the day after. But in between, of course, is the long Memorial Day weekend. Maybe relaxing for most of us, perhaps less so for those 12 everyday New Yorkers, for that teacher, salesman, speech therapist, and more, because they're going to have a big question hanging over them for the holiday. Will you vote to convict a former president? For the next 20 minutes, we're wrapping up this whole trial with a look at that big question that hangs over it. What comes next? With our team of reporters and legal and political experts here to break it all down. I want to start with Rahema Ellis outside the courthouse. So importantly, Rahema, where did we land on the jury instructions? The last words that the jury will hear from the judge, from the court, before they go behind closed doors to hash this thing out.
Yeah, I was inside the courtroom in the overflow courthouse in the overflow room, and you gave the adjectives correctly. Let me add a couple more. Tedious, complicated, but extremely crucial what they were doing in here, because this is what these jurors are going to hear in terms of what the jury instructions are going to be. There's such things they've got to consider, like for the everyday person, what is direct evidence? What is circumstantial evidence? What does it mean to have beyond a reasonable doubt? And what does it mean to intent to defraud? Some of those things that they were hashing out this afternoon, and part of what they went through was one thing. Let me tell you this. It was about the Access Hollywood tape. The defense called for the jury to be instructed on the legitimate purpose of the Access Hollywood tape, but that was denied by the judge. The defense saying essentially that the testimony of the tape was used to determine something about the impact on Trump and why he might have been motivated to commit a fraud as he's been accused of committing. But the judge said that there has been testimony on that. Indeed, there has. And you remember Hope Hicks, she testified that when that Access Hollywood tape came out, she said the campaign was in, quote, a meltdown. So the judge denied the defense request to give the jury more information about that. Another request that was denied by the judge for the defense, they were asking about some instructions about non-disclosure agreements, and that they wanted the judge to instruct the jury that they are not inherently illegal. Why? Well, because there was an NDA with Karen McDougal and with Stormy Daniels, both of them being paid to keep them quiet. Thus, the hush money trial, as this trial has been so named. But the judge also said on that, no need to go into that. He believes that the jury is clear about non-disclosure agreements and that they don't need further instruction from this judge on that. There'll be plenty of instructions, Hallie. You can depend on it, but he's not going to concentrate on at least those two items. Hallie?
Rahema Ellis live for us there in downtown Manhattan after another long day in court. Thank you very much, Rahema. Appreciate it. I want to bring in now somebody who knows the prosecution's star witness well, Michael Cohen's legal advisor and former attorney, Laney Davis. Laney, thank you for being back on the show.
Thank you, Hallie.
I wonder if you've spoken with Michael Cohen. How's he doing now that this trial is close to wrapping up?
So I have chosen not to. Of course, we talked many times trial. I did not want it to come up in cross-examination. What did you talk to Lanny Davis about, since I'm no longer his attorney and I don't want to be called as a witness?
We mentioned those attempts by Costello to apparently try to keep Cohen quiet. That was part of the testimony that came up today. What can you tell us about the relationship between these two?
Look, I know everything about this, and I've read all the emails and all that went on. I'll just give you 2 facts, and I won't offer my opinion. Fact 1, Costello asked to address and testify before the grand jury that ended up indicting Mr. Trump. And he asked to appear before the grand jury. Unusual request. The prosecutor said, okay, up to New York to be with Michael, just in case the grand jury would want to hear from Michael to rebut. Was the grand jury thought his testimony was so unimportant, I think they did not even need Michael to rebut. The second thing is there was never an engagement letter. He tried to get Michael to be his client. He actually billed him for time without an engagement letter. Those are facts. I'll leave the rest to the opinions of people looking at Costello's body language to decide whether or not he's a credible witness.
Well, we'll get into that more later on in this conversation during the special report. But let me ask you about a couple of key moments for Michael Cohen while he was on the stand. Moments that are almost certain to come up during closing arguments, which are set for 1 week from today. One of them, of course, the acknowledgement by Michael Cohen that he stole money from the Trump Organization. The other, this discussion about a phone call to Keith Schiller, the former president's sort of bodyguard at the time, about what the defense says and what Cohen says was this sort of prank call he was getting, these calls he was getting from a 14-year-old, but a call that is so central to the prosecution's case here about this hush money payment and what Donald Trump knew about it.
So I would love to have a chance to follow up on this question about the only 2 issues facing the jury, just to keep. So the first on the call to everybody, including your audience, Trump didn't use a cell phone. So how did Michael communicate with him, sometimes dozens of times a day? By calling Keith Schiller. That's in evidence. One of the subjects of that call was to get permission from Mr. Trump after David Pecker and Hope Hicks and other people testified that they wanted him to keep Ms. Daniels quiet right before the election. After Access Hollywood, Michael Cohen would call many, many times Keith Schiller. He'd hand the phone to Mr. Trump. That was the key narrative that mattered to us and to me. When it came to this harassing issue of what turned out to be a claimed 14-year-old, yes, Michael Cohen said he had had that conversation with Keith before the phone was turned over. That's not a lie. That's just an omission of something less important.
Lanny Davis, we're glad to have you on. We got to get you either a microphone or some headphones because I think we had a little bit of audio issues, but I think our folks caught most of it there. Lanny, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being on. Let me bring in now a couple people who know Mr. Trump well, 2 of his former attorneys, Michael Vanderveen and William Brennan. Thank you both for being back.
Thanks for having us.
Well, in stereo audio as well. I love it. Michael, let me start with you about these jury instructions here, because, boy, I mean, I think Rahima said it. It is tedious. It is weedy. You're attorneys. I'm not. It is tough to follow, but it is so critical. This is the last thing the jury's going to hear before they go behind closed doors.
Wicked important.
Yeah.
It can really make or break the case for either the prosecution or the defense. I was interested in the beginning of the week, maybe the end of last week, they were talking about the jury instructions, and Bove asked Mershon, hey, what are we going to do about the jury instructions? He said, I'm going to follow the ones I did in the Trump war case. Of course, those were our jury instructions that we had to use. We negotiated those over weeks. Bill did a lot of that negotiation. And then, of course, a lot of the argument in front of the judge. Same arguments you're hearing today are the same arguments that we were putting forward. And I got to tell you, every word in a jury instruction is crucial. We spent 2 days on for the benefit of or on behalf of.
In behalf of or on behalf of.
And that difference of that one word
of that matter.
Had 2 very different legal meanings. Yeah. And then, of course, you take those words that the judge chose and you argue the legal meanings that are there on the paper. So very interesting.
But, Bill, one distinction, of course, the jury's going to have like 6 days. I mean, between now, they've left, they're gone. They're not back until after the long weekend here. How do you think that impacts their thinking or their sort of state of mind based on the cases
I mean, it's just human nature when there's 6 days and you've been sitting there for, what, 20 days. You know, I can't imagine, and I think this jury's been very attentive to what I hear, but it's just human nature. Somebody's going to be up, Hallie, at 3 in the morning, and they're going to get sick of playing Wordle, and then they're going to hit, oh, just look at one thing, Trump trial. It happens. But I think that
is, to be clear, not allowed. They're not supposed to do that. The judge made clear, don't be doing that.
But I think that they're going to focus on the important things, such as, I noticed Lanny, who I have tremendous affection and respect for, he answered your question about the 14-year-old who Michael Cohen wanted the Secret Service on. He didn't seem to get to the part about the $60,000 of stolen client money. That's a big deal.
His audio was in and out, so we were maybe going to get to that.
Maybe it must have been out all week. But I was shocked because we know these prosecutors. We've tried against them. Frankly, they should have listened to Lanny and read his book where Lanny advises when you have a problem situation or a scandal, tell it early, tell it often, and tell it yourself. They shouldn't have let the defense shine a light on these issues. And I just can't imagine that jurors, especially the lawyers on the case, won't be completely turned off by a lawyer stealing money from his client. And Lanny's other point that he's made all week is that this alleged Weisselberg document is like the smoking gun. It's, this is the map of trouble. And the theft impacts that document. I'm not saying it eviscerates it, but it certainly taints it, because now we know that the numbers aren't really what they were.
It'll be up to the jury to determine that piece of it, but I do wonder, when you two were here, I guess it was 24 hours ago, you said, hey, I think there's maybe a good chance that Donald Trump testifies. We now know he did not, and I get it. Nobody really knows what's going to happen.
Guess what? If the jury goes south, he has nobody else to blame for himself.
So I was going to say,
that was his decision and his decision alone to make. There are only 2 decisions in criminal defense that the defendant has the absolute right to make, and it's only his decision. 1, do I plead guilty or not guilty? Yep. And 2, do I take the stand in my own defense? He chose not to. But I wanted to say one thing, give you some inside baseball. This idea that Cohen had to call Schiller to talk to Trump, that's not the way it operates. I can tell you from personal experience, the president makes his own phone calls and takes his own phone calls. His phone number is very recognizable. When it comes up, you take it.
From the White House switchboard. I mean, back when he was at the White House and he wasn't using a cell phone. I mean, just people had to go through Rona. I know Rona Graff, his EA at the time, or his sort of right-hand person.
Not his lawyers. His lawyers didn't have to.
Well, let me ask you this: as people who have defended him before, if you were taking on that job this time, and you were preparing for summations, you were preparing for this critical moment in which you're about to deliver closing arguments to a jury in this historic criminal trial, what's the thing you'd want to leave them with? All
roads lead to Cohen. And if you don't believe Cohen, you've got reasonable doubt, and it's a not guilty. But picture, and the other thing is this, the way they've charged this, it's Kafkaesque. It's like that old, I think it was Beria, the old Stalin minister who said, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. I mean, this is really bizarre that we're at closings and they're doing a multiple choice on what the crimes might be. I mean, I don't know how you could go through 20 days of trial and not know what the felony is. Well, maybe it's New York tax law. Maybe it's election interference. I mean, I don't know. I've been doing this 35 years. I've never seen anything like this. To
be clear, you're talking about, right, the underlying crime that prosecutors would show in order to bring these 34 counts.
It would be like, Holly,
documents to a felony.
Let's say we were charged with conspiracy to take out a business competitor. So we are charged with conspiracy to assassinate X. And X has to be named. This is, well, he was going to, there's misdemeanors and there's records that are not totally up to snuff, but he was going to commit some federal crime, or maybe a state crime. We'll let you know later. I mean, that's bizarre stuff.
Final thoughts.
The closing in this case wants to focus on the 4 jury instructions. Of course, credibility of witnesses, false in one, false in no, false in all. The burden of the Commonwealth and guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It's such a high burden. His presumption of innocence and the guilt beyond a reasonable doubt are 2 constitutional guarantees that have really dwindled away in this country. And so I think they really want to hammer that. They want to hit it. And I think they hang the jury in this thing.
Bill, Michael, thank you both for being on. Really
Thanks
appreciate
for
it, giving us that insight. Thank you. Let me bring in now our legal experts here, not affiliated with anybody involved in the trial. NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos, Georgetown law professor Michelle Goodwin. Michelle, good to see you. I'll start with you here with me on set. Talk me through how you see the next 48 hours once we do get court back in session again going.
Well, the next 48 hours will be a time in which the jurors are going to possibly be, as we've heard earlier, looking at beyond their Wordle, perhaps going online, right? Looking for what information they might be able to find. There's going to be the scrambling of the defense team. This represents one of 4 criminal trials. This is the first one. That's right. There's a lot at stake for the former president. Right. And
first one, it may be only one before the November election.
That may be the case. Keep in mind, this is also a tense time, depending upon what's going to happen with the Supreme Court, because one of those cases, the Supreme Court has an arm in, perhaps an arm, a leg, perhaps both arms and legs, and that's the one involving his defense of absolute immunity from any criminal charges of a past sitting or future president. That will matter significantly. So his defense team is worried about that as well. This may be the only one, but there is an election that is drumming up. So all of that is the backdrop beyond just what's going to happen in New York. And what's going to happen in New York is significant. His legal team is already preparing for what comes next. That's definitely going to be an appeal. And one other thing that one will add to this is that even though the judge in this case, Judge Merchan, has issued a gag order, what we've also seen is a parade of people that are pseudo-Trumps showing up, making comments outside of the courthouse, trying to appeal to Americans to see this case as being something that is trumped up and something that is political in nature.
Danny, I wonder what you make of the way that the jury instruction conversation went. And we know we're going to hear from Judge Merchan likely later on Thursday about sort of all of that. Kind of seemed like he wanted to, wherever he could, stick to the standard instructions. I wonder how you see it and what you make of this nearly week-long gap now for the jury. Do you think that'll favor one side or the other?
Let's start with the charging conference. It's not sexy. It's not exciting. You don't see it in movies or in TV shows, but it's quietly the most important part of the trial. And frankly, for me, the most stressful part of the trial as well. And what you just mentioned is key. How often do judges say, well, I'm a judge, I like to follow the pattern jury instructions. And then you spend the next 3 hours arguing about changing the pattern jury instructions. Every word counts. You heard from Mike Vanderveen, also known as the V, and Bill Brennan, and they spend days arguing over words, how much a single word can change the contours of the case. It's terrifying because jury instructions are the most common basis for appeal and for overturning convictions in appellate courts. So it is so critical, and you have no idea once a jury instruction is finalized, oh my gosh, did I just submarine my own case? You have no way of knowing because they move relatively quickly. I say that even though a charging conference can last all day. They are agony, and so critically important everywhere. And you heard, by the way, it was hard to follow on the Google Doc because it's such an in-the-weeds discussion. Even for the lawyers, it can be difficult to follow.
Danny's talking about a Google Doc that we use here at NBC News so that our teams in court, again, no cameras are allowed inside court. That's the way that our teams are communicating with us outside of court. In the 30 seconds we have left, Michelle and Danny both, most important thing that the prosecution, Michelle, to you, would have to get across for maximum impact to the jury in their closing. What's the one thing you've got to do?
The one thing is that Cohen was a credible witness, despite what the defense has done to try to, in every way, tarnish his truth, if you will.
And Danny, for the defense, is it the flip of that?
Yes. I mean, you want to hammer Cohen. You want to point out, I think I would make this an empty chair defense. Where's Alan Weisselberg? Why didn't the people call him? What are they afraid of? His fingerprints, his handwriting is literally and figuratively all over this case, including on the most damning document. That's his handwriting, not Trump's. I'm doing my closing, Hallie. Forgive me. But that's what it would sound like.
I did say 30 seconds for the record.
Oh, and ladies and gentlemen, render a true and just verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
Danny Savalas, Michelle Goodwin, thank you both. We're going to continue to have this conversation over the next few days with the real action, of course, picking back up in about a week. Thank you both very much. I want to bring in now a team that's covered Mr. Trump in this case for years. New York Times investigative reporter Suzanne Craig and Michael Rothfeld. Thank you both for being with us. Michael is also the co-author of the book you're seeing here, The Fixers. Michael, we'll start with you because the longer title that people can see on the cover there is The Bottom Feeders, Crooked Lawyers, Gossip Mongers, and Porn Stars Who Created the 45th President. I think folks might be wondering, well, wait a second, are these really the people who could bring him down with all the legal trouble he faces? So how are you seeing it?
Well, I mean, that's what we've seen in the trial. I mean, we had a porn star testifying. We had a lawyer who has negotiated deals to suppress sex tapes testify. We had David Pecker, the king of the tabloids. This is the orbit that Trump came from before he was president, you know, as a reality star. And those associations are what has led us to this point. So we're getting a glimpse into his past life here.
Suzanne, you've been in court this whole trial, and you talked on the live blog over for the Times about sort of the vibe in and out. One of the things you said was that people have been camping on the street overnight. Some are bringing huge suitcases to store their sleeping gear. Disputes have broken out over placement in line. You think it's going to be even worse on Tuesday. Bring us there with you. We can't be there. Our viewers can't be there. What's it like?
Well, I have to say that the lines outside the courtroom started out weeks ago, and it was pretty tame, but it's really turned into the hottest ticket in town. There's people in line that are selling. They're lining up overnight. Some just kind of go from the front right to the back again to get a spot so they can get a ticket, and then they sell it. And I've heard a few tickets have gone for upwards of $2,000, but most are going for $500. There's members of the public who can get in. There's about maybe half a dozen to a dozen that actually get into the courtroom, and the rest are in an overflow room where there's a closed circuit TV where you can watch the proceedings going on. That's usually where I sit. But it's really been something just to see the interest. I think people are coming in from out of town to try and get a ticket to get in. And then once you get in, it's really interesting because the other thing that's going on inside the courtroom, at the beginning, Donald Trump was there, and occasionally his son, Eric Trump, would show up. But in recent days, you've had upwards of, a dozen or more surrogates showing up, and they sit right behind Donald Trump. So when you see him on the closed circuit, Donald Trump is at the defense table, and then there's a line. It's often 2 rows thick of his surrogates who stand or sit behind him. You have to wonder how the jury's processing it. We don't know, but it's become more and more noticeable as the trial has gone on.
Are you at all surprised, Suzanne, that Mr. Trump did not end up testifying?
Absolutely not. And the reason why is he would have opened, he kept saying he wanted to, and I think in isolation, if he just could have gone up on the stand and made essentially a campaign speech, it would have been fine, but he would have opened himself up to cross-examination on a number of issues he didn't want to talk about, including the E. Jean Carroll case that recently concluded with the huge damages against him, and also Trump University and a lot of chapters in his past that I don't think he wants to revisit.
Michael, zoom out for us a bit here because on the big picture legal trouble, if you will, because a lot of that is less certain now. You've got trial dates for the Georgia election case, the federal classified documents case, the federal January 6th case, all up in the air right now. For years, Donald Trump has faced legal issues. He's faced legal trouble. For the first time now, there is a non-zero chance that he could end up convicted of one of these things. Put that into context.
Well, I think it's a big deal. He really has sort of evaded any sort of repercussions for, from a criminal perspective after years of investigations. And if this is the only trial before the election, I mean, we know from polling that a lot of Republican moderates who he needs to win the election have said that they would not vote if he's convicted of a felony. I mean, he's unlikely to go to prison or anything like that before the election, and it's certainly not going to inhibit him from running. But it definitely could make a big impact, on the race.
Michael Rothfeld, Suzanne Craig, thanks to both of you for being with us here during our special coverage of Donald Trump's first criminal trial. Thank you. We've got a lot of other big headlines tonight. We're going to catch you up on all of it when we pick up our regular programming right after the break.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.